Hello YouTube. Make another video today. Two tabling, well, just one tabling right now, and table starting. So you can see at table one, I'm sitting alone and waiting for people to join. Table starting can be a very profitable thing to do because it gives you an opportunity to play heads up or three-handed in very good games. Usually games that you start yourself are going to be better than games that you join because if you're just sitting alone, you sit down and a reg joins, you can sit out. So you end up only playing heads up, three-handed against two loose players, and it's very profitable because let's say you have a win rate after rake of 6 big blinds per 100 at a table with 2 losing players and 3 regs. Well, the way it works is that the 2 losing players are feeding the 3 regs and you. So eliminate those 3 regs, and now your win rate goes through the roof. Furthermore, playing two-handed or three-handed, you're going to end up playing a lot more hands per hour. So table 2 here, pretty dynamic flop. I'm going to bet, I don't think this is a flop that my opponents are going to hit too frequently, too hard. And it's a pretty good turn. I pick up a flush draw. And I'm going to check call the river. I could be losing to like king 4 or something, but or that hand also I guess could be beating me. Reload. The other thing about playing heads up, playing three-handed after table starting, is that it's a good opportunity to get really solid reads on your opponents. So you play heads up with somebody and you get a really good sense of how they play very quickly, especially if they're if they have a very myopic strategy. If they're very passive, they only bet the nuts. You can pick up on these things very quickly. So it's helpful to develop detailed reads that can then be used when you encounter these players again at 6 max tables. So I do recommend table starting. I think that it's a great way to find really good games and can be very profitable. So this guy here, Buck Lux Jr., might be a bit of a looser player. He defended big blind. After I raised pot from a small blind, he had queen 6-5-4 with 3 hearts. So this is a very weak hand, and kind of a loose call with 2 players that can re-raise behind. So potentially might be a bit of a looser player. And I'm just going to check fold the flop here. And check fold is the turn, just bottom pair, the dry ace. Not really much going on in that hand. And I'm going to fold 4-4 Jack 7 Rainbow in the small blind, very weak hand. I've played with 2 of these players on the right before. I've got some notes. Particularly this guy forgot my open limp the button. Okay, so on the button here with queens, good flat versus the cutoff open, so flat. It's kind of close thing between calling and folding. It's not a great hand, and I do have a dangling deuce. but I do have position, so I call. And I'm just going to check back if he checks. 4-way pot. You want to be a little cautious. The 9's a good card, but still quite possible I'm behind. And probably just going to go for one street of value here. And I'm going to fold to this raise. And 10, 6, 7 in the cutoff. Decent hand to open. Not a great hand by any means, but I do have 4 cards working together. And I'm just going to check back the King, King 5 flop, very dry flop. Might bet the turn if he checks and square pots it. Just going to fold. Might fire up another table. Some more 10 action. Whatever, just play it. This doesn't seem like that great a game. My table 2 here. Having an aggressive player on your left is never ideal. You want to have position on aggressive players, and you want really, really nitty players on your left so that you can play the button more frequently. Spit player Bucklocks Jr. really seems a little aggressive. Finally, we got a player here, and you can note that the opponent buys in with $4.94. So right away, that's a good sign. They are coming in with an odd buy, and often that's a sign of a recreational player, somebody who's got that amount of money in their account and putting it on the table. So you're gonna have a gamble. We'll see. Keep an open mind. Flop bottom pair, and I think pretty clear situation to just check back the flop. I know we have a very strong hand, obviously, with bottom pair. And I'm going to call here on the turn. I'm getting 7-1 because it's a min bet. I do have 3 nut outs to a 9. And none of spades might be good. So on the turn, we know 8 cards. There's 44 left. So 3 to 41 is about 13, 14 to 1 against making the nuts. But I've got potentially a lot of hidden outs. So 10-10 King 9 after my opponent limps in. I think a clear raise for value. And I flop pretty good. Top set with an open-ended draw. Usually the best hand. You're supposed to open almost anything playing heads up. Find often it's better to just raise like the top 70% of hands and fold the bottom 30 or 20. I'm going to check back the flop here. I prefer to semi-bluff more when I'm out of position, and when I'm in position, just check back, see if I hit my draw, and I'm inclined to bet less versus recreational players. I do not think I'm going to go for 2 streets of value with this tiny flush, but I prefer to bet once on the turn, because then I at least avoid giving 2 pair or a set a free card to fill up. And I guess it might be a little easier to get a straight to pay off the river if it breaks out, because when he's calling on the turn, he's got to consider he might have to call the turn and the river, and the river I could bet up to pot, so his effective odds on that call down would be much worse. But so far, my opponent looks sort of loose, passive, straightforward, and obviously that's a great thing for heads-up play. Very profitable to play straightforward, passive, loose, passive opponents heads up. So opening Ace Jack 6-6, as I said, kind of tempted to fold this. I mean, my hands were really bad, and the opponent's probably got a decent hand. He's also shorter, on the shorter stack side of things, so that sort of argues for a fold. There's less, if I do happen to hit my miracle, there's less benefit, less implied odds. Go ahead and open Ace Jack 9-6 on the button. Not a great hand, but just the nature of pot limit Omaha, you can open very wide on the button, put some pressure on the blinds. You see I opened for 2.5 times the big blind. Just need myself better odds on the steal, and then higher SVR if I do get a 3-bet. And I call the 3-bet, break the flop, and fold to a bet. Here on table 1, I am going to defend versus the min raise despite the junkiness of my hand. 5-1 odds. Almost anything can be defended in that situation. You don't really need a great hand. The nature of PLO is that equities run quite close before the flop. So when you do get offered really good odds, it's not hard to find a profitable call even with very marginal holdings. And King, Queen, 10-8 double suited. Pretty good hand to raise on the button. 2 callers. Flop a 4-card wrap on a monochrome flop. And not really interested in putting too much money in the spot. I do turn a straight. Unfortunately, straights do lose to flushes. And I don't really think my opponent is going to start bluffing 3-handed too frequently, so I'm just going to fold my straight. And this guy looks like a regular. King, Queen, 9-6, and big blind. I'm going to defend. It's not really a slam dunk call, I don't think, but I might be able to show a profit with the odds that I'm getting. And I think I'm just going to check fold on the flop here, especially 3-way. Now I'm getting better odds to see the turn, but there's also an increased chance that I'm drawing dead. And I mean, I'm getting 3-1, but I'm about 5-1 to turn my flush. I could hit like a 10 like that to pick up a big wrap, but in general, you want to be pretty cautious about drawing to non-nut flushes in PLO. It can be a very expensive proposition if you do hit your flush. Though, as it turned out, I would have won. So, Queen 8, 4, 6. Pretty marginal hand. I'm going to check back the flop here. I turn a flush, and I'm going to check back again for pot control. Maybe to induce a bluff or a thin value bet from Queen 10 now. I'm going to bet eventually, and I take it down. That's always nice. Planning to call on table 1 if my opponent raised. It's interesting that I'm the button and the big blind in this hand. So I don't know if Global Poker does it backwards or what's going on there. Table 2. I'm not going to peel with 3 pair. Only 6 outs to see the turn, and he's potting it into a 5-way pot. So you'd have to give some credit to his bet. Pick up aces on table 2. Rainbow aces. Some connectivity. I'm gonna opt for the 2.5 times button open. And I think just check back this very dynamic flop. And flip the turn. Make a pretty loose open, get 3-bet, flop, bottom pair and gutter, and I'm going to fold if my opponent bets the flop, which he does. Yeah, see, again, I'm the big blind and the button, so I don't know what the deal is with that. Kings and the small blind. I think I'm just going to call. I wouldn't mind if this player in the big blind comes along. He seems like, well, he's already gone stack a few times since he's been here, so I'm not going to continue on this flop. And the ace has me drawing almost dead. Pretty good. And here. And I flop a gutty and a weak flush draw 3-way. Clear check. It's not a very strong draw given that the board is paired. I might continue versus this tiny sizing, although I wouldn't be that surprised to see my opponent with something like a full house just trying to get me to call, drawing dead for a thin value bet with a 10 high flush. Thin mostly because the board is paired. I'll try to start another table, get some more action. Not really the greatest session so far, but it's early. I've got faith things can turn around. Pretty clear fold here, table 3 with Jack 7 5 deuce Badoogie, a hopeless hand. Kind of interesting if Global Poker has the button backwards for heads up play, should change strategy decently. So that last hand played out here. Nine, East 10, 4 deuce, rainbow. Some more heads up play with maybe potentially too loose a call here defending, especially kind of nuts. That's pretty sweet. No, okay, I guess they've got it right. The small blind is the, I don't know what I was thinking. Okay. Raises me. Re-raise. Am I getting free rolled here? You have 2 9s. No, it's just got queen 9 also, luckily. So I defend pretty weak hand in the big blind and end up flopping top and bottom. So I'm going to check raise. Probably I have the best hand. And an incredibly safe turn card actually gives me top 2 pair now. Only 1 SPR, so not much left to do at this point, but get the money in. And I don't hate that river card. I mean, it does complete some straights or jacks and 10s, but so little left. Wasn't much play at that point. I'm going to check back on table 1 here with my very weak flush draw. Make the flush. Bet's tiny, so I will raise tiny. Calls. I'm going to go for thin value on the river here, even though I do have the nut low flush. There's a lot of different straights my opponent might have. Also 2 pair, 3 of a kind. Guess I can defend 9 7 4 6. Jack 8 6 7 on table 2. And King Queen Jack 5, table 1. Table 2, break the flop, and I'm just going to check back, give up basically. Table 1, decent hand on the button. Strongly connected, rundown, middling cards. And I flopped really good. A 5-card wrap. So I think that extremely strong draws to like this are an exception to the don't semi-bluff in position rule. Because even if you get raised, it's not really problematic. Your hand is so strong with so much potential that it's not really a big deal. Whereas if you have a weaker draw, often you have to fold to a check raise. So you cost yourself your equity in the pot, potential implied odds, as well as the bet. Whereas with a draw like that, you can even, if you get raised, you can even come over the top, or you can just call with a 5-card wrap here. I think favored over a straight and only a very small dog to a set. Maybe even with a coin flip, I'd have to check a simulator. So table 3, pick up ace queen 10 7 in middle position, double suited, open, brick the flop, and I'm just going to check back here. Fire up one more table, get some more action. Queen Jack 9 8, table 3, very clear open with 1 suit in the cutoff, and I get 3-bet. So best thing to do in this situation is just call, see the flop, and it's pretty interesting flop. I flop top pair and backdoor hearts. I can also pick up potential for a straight. I'm going to call. And on this turn, I'll just fold if he bets again and check if he checks. Really a very favorable turn. Probably a little scary for him, but that just gives more credibility to his bet if he makes it. So. Table 4, Jack 8, 4, 5, double suited. First in raise, might defend. It's not a bad hand to defend your big blind with. Pretty decent connectivity, some suits. It's getting less valuable with more players in. There's more of a chance your draws are going to end up dominated. And this player bets 5 ways. Going to just fold on the flop. Table 2, Queen, Queen, Jack 3. Let's see, this player's been open looking a lot. Oh, mark him a fish. Take a note. A player frequently open limping is a sign they might be a losing player, as they're often playing weak hands, playing loose, and also playing a little passively. Table 4, just going to complete in the small blind, although I do have a pretty nice hand. And, all right, let's see what happens. I punish the field. Kind of unorthodox play here. And flopping top set with SPR of 0.5. I believe this is a good spot to bet. I'll buy in here just in case I get stacked. All right, well, that was a nice win. I guess in retrospect, pre-flop play was a mistake. My opponent should have stacked off pre with his aces instead of calling and then stacking off on the flop anyway. But I guess we both made some mistakes that hand, and luckily I won. Pretty clear 3-bet here. Face the field with 2 cold, and then if they do call, he could potentially put the rest of his stack in, giving me an opportunity to punish the callers. Instead, we go 4 to the flop, and not a flop that I'm going to continue on, even with such a low SPR. And table 1, flop the second nut flush draw on the gut shot, heads up match. Turn the second nut flush, checks, so bet for value. Oh, would have done well there if I had played. I actually rivered the nuts, which was pretty nice. Double suited kings on table 1. Heads up battle. Flop, overpair, and a flush draw. I think the play is to just bet and then stack off if my opponent raises. Instead, he just calls. And let's see, turn. I have to bet again here. 10-8, 3-5 in the big blind. Pretty unexciting hand. Flop air. I'm going to check and fold. Turn a pair. So that's pretty sweet. And check fold. Sixes. Got one pipped. So Jack 10, 3-4, double suited. I mean, any double suited hand you should be opening in a heads up match. Flopping really big on table 2. This bottom 2 pair and the nut flush draw in a 3-bet pot with an SPR of 3. Unfortunately, my opponent just checks and folds, so I was pretty excited to stack off there, but didn't get the opportunity. This is a very elite maneuver, the heads up open limp, fold to the 3 times ISO. So throw that one in your arsenal. They don't know what to think. Not going to chase my gutty on table 2. I mean, I didn't even really think about it, but especially with a player behind who can raise, although would have turned gin, not nut, redraw to the coconut. And obviously you want to balance your limp folding range with your limp calling range here. Ace queen 8-7. Flopping open-ended, so clear spot to just check back. No need to try to value or try to semi-bluff in position. With this weak 6-out draw, obviously you don't want to count the 4 or the 9 of spades. Now turning top pair, it becomes a little more attractive to bet. Good chance I have the best hand right now. And my draw is still weak enough to where I don't really mind folding to a check raise, but not strong enough where I'm sort of excited to call the check raise. I'm just going to bet here table 1. When your head's up out of position and you have a marginal hand like top pair, top kicker on this board, it's good to bet. Often your opponent's going to be weak and he'll just fold. If you get raised, no big deal. And I turn an under full on table 4, so I'm just going to bet fold to a raise and go for value on the river too if I get called. Table 3, I open and get 3-bet. And I think this is a fine hand to go 4-way. Kind of an interesting flop. I guess SPR being what it is, I have to just bet go with it. I mean, I could be in pretty bad shape here. But there's a lot of money in the pot. I'm happy to take down right away. Table 4, I've got a nut flush draw and a gutter. So that's 3 6s plus 7 hearts, 10 outs at a position. Guy can peel. It's kind of close. Now once the board pairs, I'm pretty much done with the hand. Table 3, going to be completing. Go fold to the ISO. Table 1. I think this decision's pretty close between checking back and betting. I'm going to bet. If 6s are the best hand, then checking could easily make him a higher pair. going to defend here, table 1. And table 2. Go for a smaller c-bet here, 3-way. Basically just hoping to take it down, protect my hand. Even without accounting for the selection bias against 3s in people's hands, aces stand to be the best hand there most of the time, just based on the probability of somebody having a 3. Although that doesn't necessarily mean I have to bet, because I can check and still potentially win, but or let my opponent catch up to top pair and pay me off. So I think there's a case for checking there too. Pretty strong case, especially against really passive opponents where you're not going to risk getting bluffed out. Table 2, this is the 3rd time I've been 3-bet by this player. And the interesting situation on the flop. Check calls. Nice. Table 3 was limped pre. I raised, this player donked, I flatted. If it's the turn, I call again. It's not a bad turn for my hand, aces up. And smaller bet sizing. Probably a losing call here. So you got 9s and 5s. Nice. Usually when you just call 3 straights, they show you the better hand, but I got kind of lucky there. Table 2, obviously not much going on except the dry king. So, pro tip: fold weak hands. Okay, table 1. I open the button, and my opponent 3-bets. I call. Turning quads, very nice. Aces. Table 3, I'm probably going to check call the flop. It's such a dry flop. Hopefully my opponent bets the turn, then I can go all in. Unfortunately, he doesn't. Now Jack 10 shows up. Or pocket queens. But he was bluffing. These guys bluff a lot. I don't know if you've noticed that. A bunch of bluffers on this poker site. So call them. Call them and you shall do well. Table 3, I end up with a double gut shot and aces. No, table 2. Table 3, I end up with a nut flush draw and 7s. Table 1, I flop the queen high flush, make 2 pair. And then what happened here? I'm way at the flop. 9, really? Just going to complete table 4 with okay aces. already stack off with top 2 on table 1. Calls. It's a pretty bad turn. You could have like ace and 5s. Nice. Oh, the board's paired here. Table 1. Too much going on. Not even sure what's going on anymore. I'd probably fold table 1 if this guy raised me. Oh, this session turned around in a hurry. Make sure yeah, still recording. How long is it? 40-minute video already. Not going to continue with that counterfeit wrap on table 1. Pretty clear complete on table 2 and call of the min raise. Flop a gut shot, getting to the nutty, and a very low flush draw. Well worth the min bet. Completing on table 2, pretty weak hand. Flopping top in a gutty. I'll just fold to his bet. Table 4, pretty strong hand. Table 1, pretty strong hand. Just gonna check, being in a position. Pretty good flop, table 4, top 2 pair. Very dynamic board. And I'm really deep, 200 big blinds deep with one player. I don't want to give any free cards, but I can take it down, that'd be nice. Flopping bottom set on table 2, SPR of 15. Definitely check back the turn, pot control, maybe induce a bluff. Looks like he's got king's full. Yeah. Alright, I guess I'll call it a day. Hopefully you enjoyed my video. Learned a few things about the great game of Pot Limit Omaha. Just play out these last few hands. Did alright anyway. I think I made like $5, $10, something. So, not bad. Yeah, well, hope you enjoyed my video.